Welcome, everybody. I'm so honored to be talking to you guys today. You know, I have taught over Zoom before. I've spoken over Zoom before, and I've had tons of meetings over Zoom and things like that. But I don't know that I've ever really taught an actual class and how to make stuff. And it's probably a little bit awkward because, as some of you guys know, I actually see quite a few of my students on here, former students. So that's awesome. And a lot of them know that my favorite thing is to like be outside with you guys and like looking at these plants in person and you know, harvesting them, and then we can take them back into the classroom and make amazing stuff for them. But I really love plant walks the most of anything, and I wish that we could be outside together right now doing that. My hope is that you guys will get outside and look at these plants. A lot of the ones that I'm going to be talking to you about are native to North America and really important sacred plants. And so I want to say a couple of words about that. These are my relatives. These are my friends. These plants are sacred, not just to me, but to many other Native people. And it's important to follow the protocols that have been put in place by your people and your ancestors before you go out to harvest them. Make sure that you're, like for instance, my protocols are that I go out, I offer tobacco before I harvest. I try to sing to the plants, I talk to them. I try to be as aware of how much I'm taking as possible and be as sustainable as possible. And so I really ask you guys to always be cognizant and aware of how much you're taking, and always practice reciprocity. That just means giving back. Make sure you're doing your part. Make sure you're harvesting each plant properly. Some plants want to be pulled up by the roots, but most do not. So get to know those plants before you go out and harvest them. Figure out the best way, the most sustainable way, the way that they prefer to be harvested. In saying that, working with plants over the internet like this is difficult. And a lot of times your only option, and that's totally fine, but a lot of times your only option is going to be to order these plants online. I really hope that instead of ordering them online, or maybe in addition to ordering them online, as I do, you will go out on a plant walk and you will get to know these plants. You will sit with them, you will talk to them, you will listen to them when they talk to you, and you'll pray with them. So that's really my hope, is that you guys will get out there and really get to know these plants. But I do understand that a lot of times it's difficult to do that, and we need places where we can order them. And if you do that, still, when you get that plant from wherever you're getting it from, treat it with love and respect, because someone has stood up for these plants. Like a lot of you guys know, I was at Standing Rock, for example. I've been up to Canada, up to Wet'suwet'en and those areas, and I've stood up for these plants. I've fought for them, and you know, I've been pepper sprayed for these plants and shot with rubber bullets and things like that. So when I talk about these plants, I talk about them as sacred beings, and I hope you guys, I hope that'll come through. So, okay, if Nicole, did you have any other logistical things before I actually get started talking about stuff?
No, thank you, Linda. Everything that you said, please be very cognizant. This is very different to share this way, not in person to person. So it is very different. So please be respectful of all the plants that we talk about. And no, I don't have any logistical. If everybody can just mute their mics, make sure your mics are muted. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
And just so you know, because Linda, somehow the limit is at 5. It's at 100, even though we extended it to 1,000. So I'll be doing some of the contacting Zoom right now. And if you have anybody that's on and your people are saying I can't log in, we are recording it, but I am working to make sure that they can log in a little bit. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so hopefully more people will be able to get on soon. We have the limit set at 100 participants right now. We had meant for it to be set at 1,000, and we did have quite a few people register. So hopefully that'll be rectified soon. Okay, so I don't love PowerPoints, but I thought it would really give a good way for you guys to see what I was talking about and for me to show you pictures of plants. It's like a virtual plant walk, kind of. But I wanted to talk about what we eat, because that really is one of the most important things in fighting any illness, viral illnesses like this coronavirus, COVID-19. Actually, the virus is called SARS-CoV-2. That's just me being nerdy. But in fighting any of these illnesses, it's really important to have a healthy gut microbiome, okay? It's really important to eat good foods. White colored foods like white sugar, refined flour, dairy, potatoes, and I'm talking about white potatoes and white rice and things like that. I eat a lot of rice. I'm part Asian, part Native. So, you know, it's a give and take, but trying to avoid those white colored foods right now is really important because they tend to be inflammatory, and that can sometimes make a lot of illnesses worse. So it's important to try to incorporate a lot of good, healthy foods into our diet, like fermented foods. We have eaten these processed, overly processed things that are high in fat, high in sugar, high in preservatives for so long that our gut microbiome is not very healthy. And so it's important to start adding fermented foods back into our diet. I eat a lot of kimchi, which is of course a fermented cabbage product. This is Napa cabbage and daikon radish. Yep, all kinds, you can use all different, you can even use red radishes and garden turnips, all kinds of things. You can ferment them. And so this is just basically cabbage, spices, and salt. That's basically all kimchi is. And I can, I have posted kimchi recipes on my Facebook page. You can go there and find them, or I might be able to repost some recipes, but I wanted to show you that. I also wanted to show you the sauerkraut that we made. This is just cabbage and salt. Cabbage is super inexpensive, and it's very easy to make. It's just shredded cabbage and salt. That's all that it is. And it's you let it sit for a while and it develops really amazing bacteria. Good gut bacteria. I wanted to show you this. A friend of mine, Shai, he owns a company out of Florida where they make, this is turmeric cumin sauerkraut. And this is not made, okay, if you want good healthy bacteria, you cannot use sugar and you cannot use vinegar. That's very important. Things have to be lacto fermented. The process is called lacto fermentation. That means you're basically just using salt as your fermenting agent, okay? And so this, my friend's company, it's called Olive, O-L-I-V-E, Olive My Pickle. They do a whole bunch of lacto fermented products. And this is one of my favorites. It's turmeric cumin sauerkraut. I love it. And then, of course, kefir, if you can handle the dairy, and miso paste, if you can handle soy. Some people don't like using soy in their diet, but you can ferment any vegetable, carrots, cabbages, onions. You can ferment and lacto ferment anything. Of course, cucumbers, pickles, lacto fermented pickles are amazing. Really good, you know, stuff that's good for you. I also put up some of my favorite vegetables for healthy lungs. The things I have in bold there, like cranberries, apples, thyme, oregano, are all amazing for healthy lungs. Who knew apples, right? But it's true. Apples contain compounds that are very healthy for your lungs. And so if I'm gonna, like if I myself have asthma, so I don't want you guys to think that I don't know what you're talking about and I don't know what you're going through. For those of you who have lung issues, I do. And so I try to incorporate a lot of these foods into my diet all the time. So one of my favorite recipes is just a chicken breast stuffed with cranberries, apples, thyme, and oregano. Delicious. You can put my wild rice recipe on the side there. It's basically wild rice that's infused with green tea, and then you add blueberries and mint. Goes amazing with that chicken. I also love the salmon with garlic and rosemary and black pepper. Watercress salad with some cucumbers, carrots, lemon juice. Lemon is amazing for your lungs, full of vitamin C, and it boosts your immune system so you can fight off lung infections better as well. And then of course my pineapple salad there with a little bit of spice. Any of the spicy chilies like cayenne, jalapeno, serrano, whatever, those chilies are very good for lung support. If you can handle them, they're also expectorant, meaning they help to thin mucus so that you can get it out. I'm probably gonna say mucus a lot during this webinar, and I apologize ahead of time for that. So you'll just have to handle that and try not to picture it too much. That pineapple salad is absolutely amazing and delicious just by itself. It kind of reminds me of chili mango, and it's really yummy. Okay, next slide. So those are some of my favorite foods for healthy lungs. And okay, so now we're gonna talk about some of my favorite plants for overall lung health. This of course is licorice root, Glycyrrhiza lepidota. If you buy the Chinese licorice root, the one out of China, it's Glycyrrhiza glabra. I like scientific names. It's okay, I put the English names on here as well. Really cool story about this one. I know we don't have tons of time today, we just have an hour, but the Lakota name for this plant is Winawizi chikala, which means the little jealous one. And that's because it's actually used as a medicine to sort of ward off bad medicine. It's used to ward off and protect you from jealousy. You know, I say, you know, like your partner's jealous ex, you know, you can actually wear this plant around your neck or wear some of it in a medicine bag or keep some in your pocket to protect yourself from bad medicine. But it's also incredible lung support. And you guys can actually look up, you can just Google licorice root and its use in treating SARS, which of course was that horrible coronavirus that had a hugely high death rate that went you know, worldwide. It definitely didn't spread as far and wide as COVID-19 has, but the original SARS, they very successfully used licorice root to treat that. And it's been used, of course, by indigenous people all over North America for forever to treat a lot of viral illnesses, in particular lungs. And I can actually send that spelling to you later. Okay. So we have licorice root, and now we have mullein. Mullein is a really well-known, it's actually not native to North America, but it's very common, and a lot of native people use it now. Now, let me just say that as someone with asthma who's very sensitive to fuzzy things, I actually don't use mullein. I'm very sensitive to the little hairs, and if you look at those pictures, you can see the little hairs that are covering it. Some people call this Indian toilet paper, actually, because it's very soft and useful for that purpose. But it is also amazing lung support, and I have friends who absolutely swear by it. In all of their, you can make a wonderful tea out of it. Just make sure to strain it very well. You can strain it through like a coffee filter to make sure you get all the hairs out. I still find it kind of irritating, but you know, some people absolutely love it and swear by it and use it all the time for their lungs. You can make a tea out of it. I'll show you some other recipes that you can use. Yes, some people put it in their elderberry elixir. Some people make cough medicine out of it. Incidentally, do you see that flowering stalk on the right side of your screen? That's the mullein flowering stalk. And that is very resinous, and resinous plants tend to be very good for the lungs. That is also, the resin makes a wonderful torch and fire starter. I have friends who smoke mullein as well for their lungs, and they find it very useful. Even there's a whole protocol for quitting smoking of tobacco products using mullein, interestingly enough. Next slide, please. So another group of plants that I use are the menthas or the peppermints. On the left side of your screen, you have mentha piperita, and on the right you have Mentha arvensis. These are two species of peppermint that are amazing. The Mentha arvensis is native and considered really important and amazing for people of the Great Plains in particular. And I know it grows over in Ojibwe country as well. And it's, wow, sometimes when I'm having an asthma attack, if I need to open up my breathing passages, my bronchial passages, I can have a cup of mint tea and it's very helpful in opening those breathing passages up. I can even use some mint essential oil, peppermint essential oil, great for headaches, by the way, but also really good for lung support and lung health. But if you want to maintain overall lung health over time, this is a great plant to have a cup of mint tea every day, or to incorporate the mint into your diet pretty regularly as well. Next slide, please. L-campaign, another one that's not native, but that has been used and is now used widely. Some of my Haudenosaunee friends use it all the time in their lung support, their lung remedies. It can be used as a tea. You can make a cough medicine out of it, all kinds of stuff. It's really a wonderful, wonderful plant. You can, by the way, if you're making tea from some of these plants, you can actually mix a lot of them together. I find that L-campaign goes really great with mint and works really well for lung health, overall lung health and lung support. So those are two really good ones to use together. Next, please. Okay, bear root, also known as OSHA. I want to say a couple of words about this, and we'll talk about some preparations for it later. So if you've never seen bear root up close, that's what it looks like. This is a good sized chunk. Whenever I have a really bad headache, or I know someone with a migraine, do you have a lighter? I will take my OSHA, my bear root, and I will burn it. Sorry. I'll burn it until I get some good, until it really, you know, gets going pretty well. And then I inhale that smoke very deeply. It will actually kill the bacteria that causes sinus infections. If you are prone to sinus infections, it is really a wonderful plant. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the Lakota name for this is Matro Trapejuta. Matro is the word for bear. Trapejuta means the medicine of, so it's a really nice traditional medicine. But let me tell you, please be very careful and very conservative. There are other plants that work very well. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because I want to talk about traditional medicine, medicine that's really important to indigenous people. But bear root is a threatened plant, okay? It's a threatened plant species. If you are going to harvest it, do so extremely conservatively. Do it only if you really need it, and just be very respectful. Make sure to make your offerings for the plant and only take what you absolutely need. Be very conservative and use it conservatively as well. It's very strong medicine, it's very sacred medicine, but it is just, you know, the reason I wanted to talk about it tonight is just because it's so important for good, strong lung support. And I'll talk about making OSHA honey later, which we use all the time in various cough remedies and lung for lung support. Okay, and I promise in just a second, I'll stop to answer a couple of questions, or maybe we can keep them till the end, if that's okay with Nicole. Okay, another plant. So something really interesting, when I was in Germany, they were talking about narrow leaf plantain, and I went into a pharmacy because a friend of mine wasn't feeling well, and you cannot find a single cough medicine in Germany that does not have narrow leaf plantain in it. Every cough medicine, whether it is prescription or over the counter, has narrow leaf plantain. And I just thought that was very interesting because they really, you know, they know the value of this plant. Now, broadleaf plantain is pretty good. It's great, of course, for burns and things like that. But if you really want the overall lung health and lung support, this narrow leaf plantain, Plantago lanceolata, is absolutely incredible and much more effective, has many more of those medicinal compounds for treating lung ailments. I've also found it to be mildly expectorant. So if you are someone who smokes cigarettes and you have like a smoker's cough, it actually makes a really good tea for getting that, you know, mild or moderate lung congestion up. It's a really great plant and very common. It's okay. Next slide. So talking about those teas that all of those teas we were just talking about, like the narrow leaf plantain and the mullein and the mint, if you're going to make a tea out of those, so let me show you something that I use here. I have these fillable tea bags. They're drawstring tea bags that I buy online, or sometimes one of my favorite companies is David's Tea, but not for their tea blends, just for their tea bags. But this is an unbleached tea bag with a drawstring. And so basically you just fill this up with whatever tea is your favorite, whatever one you like the best. And then you just pull the drawstring closed. And it's extremely secure. You can give these away as gifts for people who might need them, or, you know, use them yourself. Even when I cook, like when we make pho, homemade pho, we put our spices into here and close them up and throw them into the broth so that we don't have to fish them out later. But these fillable tea bags are fantastic. And so if you're making any of those teas, it's really important for you to know the difference between a decoction and an infusion. A decoction is a tea, an infusion is a tea that's made with really soft plant parts. So like if I was going to make a tea out of peppermint leaf, this is some peppermint leaf I have here, then I would be making an infusion. And you don't want to boil or cook the softer plant parts. You just steep them in hot water. So you get your cup of hot water, you put your tea bag or your tea ball, whatever you're using, into there, and you let it steep in that hot water for about 10 to 15 minutes. That's an infusion. A decoction is different. That's made with tougher plant parts, like licorice root. This is the root, of course, of a plant. And that's, you know, the parts of this are very tough. You know, they're not soft at all. They're very hard. They're kind of like the bark of a tree. So with any of those like roots or barks or big tough seeds, you're going to be making a decoction. And a decoction is where you actually cook the plant parts. You boil them for a period of time, anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. Sometimes people go even a little bit more. And then you'll strain that, of course, and you can add honey or whatever, but you actually cook them. So cook them for a period of time, and then I usually like to steep them for a little while after that. Why is that? The tougher plant parts, it's tougher to break down those cell walls and get the medicine basically out of the cells. Sorry, I saw a question here. Repeat. Oh, sometimes I just buy them online from my tea bags. I buy them online, like from, you know, just off of Amazon or wherever. But David's Tea, it's a Canadian company, I believe, like the name David. They are really wonderful and have amazing drawstring tea bags. So, okay, next. So we were talking about plants for overall lung health. And because it's spring and it's allergy season and we're all going through a lot, I wanted to talk a little bit about plants for allergies. And of course, the same one as before, licorice root, one of my favorites. Incidentally, if you've never tried licorice root, it is extremely sweet, sweeter than sugar. So, I mean, almost sickeningly sweet. So you make a tea out of this and you don't need to add sweetener. It is extremely sweet by itself. And it's one of my go-to plants for allergy. I often tell the story about how I was having class during allergy season, and everyone, even people, it was like a classroom of 25 people, and we were on a plant walk, And everyone, even people who had never had seasonal allergies before, because there was so much pollen in the air, everyone was feeling the effects. So I took them back to the classroom and gave them all a cup of licorice root tea. And within 20 minutes, everyone in the class, all 25 people, had relief of their symptoms. It's just really a wonderful plant for allergies. Next. So nettles, or stinging nettles, they have that name for a reason. That photo on the left, you can kind of see the little stinging hairs on there. And we were always taught, now I'm sure many of you have run into stinging nettles before, or you've had a run-in with stinging nettles before. We were always taught when we were little not to to not wear gloves when you harvest them barehanded and let them sting you, because the medicine in those stingers will actually keep you from having arthritis as you get older. And I really swear by that. You know, everyone who I know who has gathered nettles their whole lives have very healthy joints. And nettles are very anti-inflammatory. They're wonderful for treating things like arthritis, but them being anti-inflammatory means they're also amazing for allergies. So that inflammation you get in your sinuses, the inflammation of your eyes that makes them all itchy, the inflammation, you know, in your nasal passages, and even in your throat and your lungs, of course, you can see a lot of relief from nettles. They're also beautifully edible with any drying, crushing, and cooking. All of the stinging effect goes away. So you don't have to worry about the tea stinging you. So if you're making a tea from this, or I'll give you my allergy elixir recipe in a second, you can actually use this and drink it as a tea. You can eat it and see relief of inflammatory responses from eating it or drinking it, and even using it externally. We use it as a whipping treatment on arthritic joints or pinched nerves, all kinds of stuff like that. So really amazing plant. Next. Okay, goldenrod. A lot of people believe that goldenrod is the reason that they have allergies. A lot of people attribute their seasonal allergies to goldenrod. What they've actually found in the last couple of years is that goldenrod, the pollen is too large and too heavy to be the culprit for your seasonal allergies. Bam. I know I'm like making a lot of people go, what, really? Because a lot of people on here probably attribute their allergies to it. But goldenrod, it's been found that the pollen is just too large and too heavy to cause seasonal allergies. So it actually makes a wonderful anti-inflammatory, and it really helps to fight seasonal allergies, especially when used as a tea. I personally prefer the flowers, but a lot of people use the flowers and the leaves, and that's completely up to you. Next. Okay, so this is my recipe for my allergy elixir. Now, let me say, I am not going to send this PowerPoint out. So if you want these recipes, take a picture with your camera or take a screenshot or something like that, because I'm not going to send the whole PowerPoint out. I don't mind sharing the recipes, so I can do that in case you missed, like maybe you missed my chicken recipe earlier or something like that. I can send those to you. But this allergy elixir recipe is one of my favorites, and one that I've used a lot and taught to a lot of people. I've perfected it over time. Years ago, I used only licorice root and nettles. And now I use the licorice root, the nettles, ginger, amazing, and some lemon juice. Now, I know a lot of you probably already use raw honey to treat your allergies, and in particular, using local raw honey, right? With the research has actually shown that because those bees pollinate all of those things that you're allergic to, you can actually gain some, build up, the word isn't immunity, but build up a resistance sort of to those allergens. And so utilizing raw honey in some of your recipes. Yes, this, yeah. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, this will be recorded, and the link to it will be shared on the NAFSA Facebook page. So that's great. So you can check that out and get the recipes that way. Okay. So the allergy elixir there, it's one of my favorites. Just follow it exactly, and make sure you don't overheat the honey, because all of that good stuff in the honey will, if you cook it too much, you'll lose a lot of the good healthy stuff that's in the honey. So try not to do that, okay? All right, next slide. Okay, so we talked about overall lung health. Then we talked about medicine for allergies to help keep your lungs healthy during allergy season. And then Nicole, can you hit the next slide? Maybe? Okay, and now we're gonna talk about medicine for opening up your lungs. I tend to get a lot of this means lung congestion. That means that mucus buildup in your lungs, which causes pneumonia, causes, if it's in your upper respiratory system, it causes terrible bronchitis. We're finding that this coronavirus, the COVID-19, the actual infection, causes horrible pneumonia, heavy mucus way down deep in the lungs. And it's a horrible feeling. Some patients describe it as almost feeling like their lungs are filling up with water. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about some medicines to help open the lungs up, get rid of some of that mucus, but also open up bronchial passages in case you're someone who has issues with like asthma and closed up airways. Now let me say something here while we're talking about it, just because I think that this is important right now with the SARS-CoV-2 infection and COVID, and SARS-CoV-2 virus and the COVID-19 infection. It's really important to remember that there is no cure for COVID-19. There's no cure. Saying that you are going to treat COVID-19 is probably not even an accurate term to use. The best we can do right now, there's no Western medicine. They have no protocol for treating this. You guys have heard they're trying these interferons. They're trying the hydrochloroquine. They're trying all kinds of antibiotics, even though we know antibiotics are not antiviral. They're trying all kinds of stuff to fight this, but really Western science is far behind the game. We are lucky as Indigenous people because our medicines have a lot of general actions, and that's really what I'm talking to you about today. Things that help to thin mucus, things that help to open up breathing passages, plants that help to boost your immunity, plants that help to boost your gut microbiome and keep you healthy. All of these kinds of things, these beautiful medicines have general actions, and that's what we have right now. That's what's helping us, and I'm really thankful for that. But I just wanted to say that there's no cure. All we can do is work to fight it as much as possible right now. So some good medicine for opening up your lungs. Again, more of the mint family. We talked about the two in the middle there on the top, that field mint, also in the top of middle, that's field mint, also known as Mentha arvensis. And then below that in the middle is the peppermint. The one with the purple spike flower on the left side of the screen is hyssop. That's agastiche, phoeniculum, in case you're into scientific names. But some people call it anise hyssop. It tastes like black licorice. I love it. And then on the right there, we have Monarda fistulosa, or bee balm. All of these are wonderful for opening up the lungs. Bee balm is actually extremely antibacterial. I use it in a lot of experiments and with my students a lot to show them antibacterial activity of plants. It's wonderful for treating infections. You can use the flower, the leaves, the stems as a tea of all of these plants. But do not pull them up by the roots. As long the roots will actually send up new plants next year. So please do not pull any member of the mint family up by their roots. Just use the top of the plant, and you can use the whole top of the plant for these. Okay, next. Yes, actually, can you go back, Nicole, one slide? Because my friend and my former student Bailey, she was just talking about elk medicine, and the Monarda on the right side of the screen, the bee balm, is also known as elk medicine because it has been used as love medicine. So take a close look at that plant and make sure that if anyone gives you a bouquet of it, that it's someone that you want to be giving you a bouquet of love medicine. Okay, next slide. So again, bear root, another great one for opening up the lungs. I'll talk about OSHA honey or bear root honey in a minute. And that's something that I use to open up my lungs if I have a lot of lung congestion, and that a lot of people use for overall lung health and even allergies. It's really just an amazing plant for the lungs, which is why I wanted to talk about it, even though I have my concerns about it being harvested sustainably. Next, please. Okay, curly cup gumweed, Grindelia. I actually have a jar of it right here. This is amazing. Now, anytime you're up on the northern Great Plains, you will see this growing almost, I hate to use the term weed because that implies a plant that no one likes, which is just ridiculous. Curly cup gumweed is, people call, I call it Grindelia, is amazing and resinous. Remember what I was saying earlier, that resinous plants tend to be very good for the lungs. This is actually one of the reasons it's called gumweed, is because if you take a close look at the flower, it's actually covered in sticky resin, okay? It's very sticky. And you can even smell that resin, it's wonderful. There's a different species of Grindelia that grows in the Southwest, equally medicinal. You can make a tincture out of it if you know how to make a tincture. You can make a tea out of it. One of my favorite ways to use it is as a steam, and I'll give you the recipe for that in just a second, but amazing. Sometimes we'll actually take bouquets of Grindelia and we'll stick it up in the rafters of the sweat lodge, and when you pour that water on those hot rocks, the steam will rise and get all throughout the sweat lodge, and you breathe that in. It's the most amazing thing. You have to actually take a towel in there to blow your nose because it will thin that mucus up in your sinuses and in your lungs almost immediately. Wonderful medicinal plant. Next. Another plant for opening up your lungs is, of course, slippery elm. Another plant that you have to harvest conservatively. Do not skirt the tree. That means only take a strip from one side so that the tree can continue to feed itself. People were taking too much of the bark, and slippery elm has now become moderately threatened in some areas. So be very careful and conservative. But slippery elm bark is an amazing expectorant. Of course, you know, I'll talk about cough medicines in just a couple of minutes, but if you want a really good expectorant that is not bought, like, you know, a lot of people use Mucinex. They buy it online or they buy it in the store. I tend to try to avoid that, but slippery elm is a great alternative to that. It really helps to thin the mucus so that you can cough it up more easily. And it's also very soothing to the throat, and it's soothing to the digestive system. Actually, slippery elm is wonderful if you're someone who has a lot of stress and anxiety and ends up with ulcers. Slippery elm is great for that. Next. I gotta try to hurry up here because I have a couple recipes I wanna give you guys. Cherry bark, of course, you can use either the choke cherry that grows where I live in the Western United States, Or even further east, you have Prunus serotina, which is also known as black cherry. And those barks are wonderful for tea. You have to make sure to boil them properly. Cherry contains high amounts of cyanide. And if you do not boil off that cyanide, you are going to hurt yourself. But they do sell a lot of cherry bark in the stores and in herb shops as a lung remedy. And I have to tell you, it is so amazing for lung health and opening up those breathing passages. So just make sure to make that tea as a decoction, cook that bark, boil it for 10 to 20 minutes, and then you can. I'm not sure if holly leaf cherry bark can be used. I'd need a scientific name for that, Emily. So if you figure out what the scientific name is, I can let you know. Okay, next. So here are some recipes for really great opening up your lung medicine. Here's my OSHA honey, by the way. A spoon. So OSHA honey is about a tablespoon or more, if you prefer, of OSHA root, bare root, ground up into a powder. Just use a coffee grinder or something like that, to about a quarter cup of honey. Look at that. Gorgeous. I'm not letting that go to waste. Such good medicine. And really, like, it's almost menthol-ish. And so, you know, I can already feel that ability to take a deep breath. It's really wonderful. You know, we can actually go to the next slide there too. Because we talked about, oh no, actually let's stay on this one, sorry. So the OSHA honey, wonderful medicine for opening up the lungs. The Grindelia steam, that's where I use my Grindelia or curly cup gumweed. I also like to use rosemary and eucalyptus. I have a friend who sent me a beautiful rosemary leaf from her yard and gorgeous eucalyptus leaves from her yard out in California. And I can mix the three of these together, put them in a pot of boiling water, put a towel over my head, and breathe that steam in very deeply, okay? And that's gonna help to thin the mucus up that might be in my lungs, even if it's really deep down there, and thin up that mucus in the lungs, thin up the stuff in my sinuses. Really incredible to do those steams. I also like to do expectorant shots. That's just basically in about the size of a shot glass or smaller, some Tabasco, a little bit of horseradish. It doesn't matter if it's the canned horseradish, and a little bit of honey. You can thin it out with a little bit of water, but you just basically shoot that. Now, you know, if Tabasco isn't hot enough, you can use something spicier, okay? But only use what you can handle. But you guys know that when you eat very spicy food, what happens? Your nose starts to run, your eyes water, you know, it thins up. Spicy stuff, the capsaicin and things like that do help to thin liquid, tend to thin up bodily fluids. So it really helps to thin the mucus in the lungs. And they also can be anti-inflammatory. So really, those expectorant shots are amazing if you have really bad congestion. And then there's my recipe for cherry bark syrup. You're gonna do whatever you want with that cherry bark syrup. It's just cherry bark as a decoction boiled down, and you add a little bit of honey and maple syrup to thicken it. And you can actually keep that by the bedside at night, and it will help with coughs even at nighttime. Let me just say a word real quick. Do not use over-the-counter cough syrup that has dextromethorphan in it. That stuff is horrible. It is a dissociative. That means it's a hallucinogen. So do not give over-the-counter cough syrup with dextromethorphan to your kids, please. It acts on their brain to convince them they don't have to cough. So it actually does nothing to heal you. It does nothing to really control your cough. It suppresses your cough, by suppressing the cough response in your brain, okay? So don't use that stuff. Clinical trials have shown that even just plain honey works better to control a cough. So that like maybe at nighttime you have to rest or whatever. Plain honey works better to control a cough than dextromethorphan, cough syrups like Robitussin and stuff. Plain honey works better. So do not use those over-the-counter cough medicines. Just terrible, terrible stuff. Okay, next I want to give you guys, show you my recipe there for my favorite vapor rub. And this is really so easy. I'm not really gonna demonstrate it, but I'm gonna kind of demonstrate it. Right here, I have a crock pot, okay? And this is an old crock pot. I bought it like at a thrift store or something. Making vapor rubs, making balms, making salves, making even lip balm, it's all the same process and it's super duper easy, okay? So pay attention to me just for a second here. You basically, if you want to make a vapor rub, you take your plants, in this case, you know, oh, I have my Grindelia, okay? And I'm gonna put, you guys can see I'm measuring very carefully, not. So let me just say this. If I added half a cup of Grindelia to this instead of a quarter of a cup, would it hurt me or anybody? No, it wouldn't, right? But I give the base recipes because people like recipes. So, but you know, if you find that you'd like to use more Grindelia and less rosemary, do that, okay? So I put my Grindelia in here. I add my rosemary, and in this case, I'm adding some eucalyptus to this. And then, so I have my plants in here, and all I'm gonna do is cover those with oil. And this, I have some organic olive oil that I'm gonna use to cover it. Okay, you can use any oil you want. Hopefully you can see my recipe there. You can use whatever oil you want. You can use olive oil, coconut oil, sunflower oil. You can use bear grease if you have some really beautiful bear grease sitting around. I have a friend who swears by pork fat. He renders all of his bacon fat down and he makes salves out of it. But I don't want to go around my res neighborhood smelling like bacon. So I use plant-based oils for that. But you can certainly use animal-based oils, okay? So all you're gonna do is keep your oils and your plants in here. Again, let me just reiterate how easy this is. All I have in here are plants and oil, okay? I'm gonna leave them in a pot on warm overnight. Not on low, not on high, on warm overnight. Then in the morning, I'll strain it out. I'll reheat the oil a little bit, and I'm gonna add my essential oils in there. Like my, oh, I have some cypress oil here, or eucalyptus oil. You can add eucalyptus oil, peppermint oil, camphor oil. That's my favorite blend for the vapor rub. It reminds me of Vicks vapor rub, and my parents used a lot of Vicks on me when I was little. I do not use Vicks and those kinds of things on my kids because I do not like petroleum-based products, okay? And I'll just say a word about that, the question that Crystal's asking. I do not have a particular essential oil company that I use by any means. I take what people give me. They are so freaking expensive that if people donate an essential oil to me, I'm like super thankful because they're very expensive. I'll use whatever I have. And I even use sometimes the cheap stuff. You know, like if I don't have anything else, because I can't afford the expensive stuff. So I just definitely don't have a particular brand that I use. It's just whatever I can afford at the time or whatever people give to me. Okay, so I have my plants and my oils in here. All I do is strain them out. And I have just an old colander here, and I put cheesecloth, or in this case, I had a towel that I'm gonna use. If I don't have an old towel I can use an old t-shirt. Use whatever you all have laying around, okay? It does not have to be fancy, okay? And I'm gonna strain those into a bowl. That's all I'm gonna do is just strain my plants and oil into a bowl.
Like having shower.
and then I'm gonna reheat that. Can you mute yourself? I hear someone.
Hi, please mute your microphones.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I only have a few more minutes, so I kind of want to get through it. So strain those, reheat the oil. Why are you reheating the oil? You are reheating the oil because after you add your essential oils, after you add your eucalyptus, peppermint, camphor, you're gonna add melted beeswax, okay? And now here's some beautiful, you guys can see that, I hope, without me pouring it out. Beautiful melted beeswax in there, okay? That was, can I see the solid block? That was a solid block of beeswax a couple of minutes ago, okay? And all I did was melt a small chunk of it so that I can thicken my vapor rub. That's the only reason you're adding beeswax. If you don't want a thick vapor rub, you actually don't need to add the beeswax. You can just use the vapor oil, okay, as a chest rub, okay? You don't have to use the beeswax if you don't have access to it. It's kind of actually tough to find some of that stuff right now because everyone's buying it up, okay? So that's my recipe for that. So let's move on. Next slide, please. Again, cough medicine. I love black cherry bark for treating coughs. I gave you my cherry bark opening up the lungs recipe a minute ago, and that's wonderful for the choke cherry syrup. Next. Juniper is amazing for cough medicine, and I'll give you my juniper. There's some beautiful juniper berries. I'll give you my juniper recipe in a minute. Now, those beautiful, gorgeous blueberries, love those. Juniper is a wonderful medicine for treating coughs and for overall lung health in general. Very easy to find. Make sure that wherever you're harvesting your juniper, it's not right next to a road, because you do not want a bunch of road dust, right? Road dust, especially on gravel roads and things like that, very toxic. They put horrible things on that gravel before they put it down on the road, horrible things on that blacktop. So just try to get them as far away from the road as possible. But juniper, you can use it just as a tea. You don't have to make a cough medicine out of it. Just use it as a tea and maybe add some honey to it if you want to. Next. Another, of course, bare root. Again, I want to reiterate, one of the keys to learning plants and plant identification is repetition, going over these things over and over. And this is the way I teach. And some of my students who are on here know that about me. I will show them wild rose 15 times as we're climbing a hill, because it's important. Repetition is important to plant ID. So in case you were wondering why I put certain plants in here numerous times. Next. Again, that beautiful narrow leaf plantain, wonderful in cough medicines. It's actually in the cough medicine recipe I'm gonna be giving you guys. Next. More good medicine for relieving coughs. Of course, elderberry elixir. Everyone's talking about elderberry elixir right now. Everyone's buying it, everyone's making it. Elderberries are absolutely fantastic. If you have never seen an elderberry, they are super tiny. See that? That's an elderberry. Tiny berry, big flavor. They kind of taste like a dried raisin. They're wonderful. Incredibly antiviral as well. So that's why I think everyone is really using it a lot right now. But what a lot of people don't realize, can I have another spoon? Is this elderberry elixir, this is some elderberry elixir that we made, is fantastic for treating coughs. And I think, of course, one of the reasons is because it has, beautiful honey in it. Ours, kind of gels up a little bit because we have so much honey in there. And we keep it in the fridge so that it doesn't ferment. If you leave it out on the counter, and we've made that mistake before where we put a jar of elderberry elixir up in the cabinet, a few days later we hear a loud explosion. We open up the cabinet and there's glass and elderberry elixir everywhere. So if you don't add bourbon, if you don't add a bunch of lemon juice, keep your elderberry elixir in the fridge so that it doesn't ferment and explode, unless you pop it every day so that it breathes. But elderberry elixir is wonderful. We'll put sometimes a jar just like this with a spoon in it next to our kids' beds if they have a cough and they just wake up take a spoonful of it, maybe a glass of, drink of water, and they'll go right back to bed. It's fantastic, and it's antiviral. It's amazing. It also has a bunch of other my recipe, like the one I'm showing you up there, you can Google recipes for elderberry elixir, but my recipe has star anise in it. Star anise is one of the most important, it's what Tamiflu is derived from. Tamiflu is that antiviral prescription medication. And star anise, those cute little star-shaped black licorice-like pods, wonderful antiviral medicine. Absolutely amazing, essential right now. In my opinion, if you can't get a hold of elderberries, get a hold of some star anise, make some tea out of this. It's wonderfully antiviral, and it is also great for lung support. You can make a tea out of, if all you have is some star anise, because they sell these at all your local grocery stores and stuff. Mix it with some cinnamon and some honey, bam, you have a great cough medicine even right there, okay? Fire cider is another one. I don't know if I have any fire cider sitting around right now, but basically it is all of these spicy ingredients that I put up there and apple cider vinegar. Amazing for coughs, helps to lower blood pressure, great for blood flow and helping to condition your arteries. Really amazing medicine. And of course the OSHA honey I was talking about, also wonderful for coughs. I wanted to next, can you do the next slide? So this is my juniper plantain cough syrup recipe, okay? Those gorgeous juniper berries that I was talking about earlier, my friend Spring actually sent me some. So those juniper berries I was talking about, the narrow leaf plantain, right, that we were talking about, you're basically just gonna put in some fresh ginger root, okay? Peel that off. Oh, kind of looks like a person. You're gonna peel the ginger, mince it, and add juniper, the ginger, your plantain to a pot of water, to a cup of boiling water. Let it steep for about 20 minutes, a good long time, 20 minutes. Then you can strain it and add a cup of raw honey. This is actually honey straight from the White Earth Reservation. They gave me that as a gift. I love those guys up there. And then add a couple tablespoons of lemon juice. That lemon juice will help to preserve your cough syrup, okay? But keep it in the fridge anyway, and use a tablespoon of it as needed for coughs, okay? All right, we're getting kind of down to the wire, and I know that there are some questions. So Nicole, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll try to answer as many of them as possible. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really enjoyed talking about it. I know it's kind of a whirlwind. Normally when I teach a class like this, especially if I'm trying to demonstrate stuff, I do it over like 4 hours. With breaks and everything, but okay, I'm ready for questions if you guys are.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. I know it is so crazy to do it over this technology and everything. And let's see some questions that are coming in. Okay, there's a lot of them coming in, and unfortunately we did have about over 600 people registered. Talk to Zoom. We had 1,000 confirmed to be able. So anyways, we'll post this right after, guys. Let's see, after you, okay, they keep coming in, so they keep moving. After you harvest, do you need to dry these plants before making tea?
You do not need to dry plants before you make tea. You can use fresh plants to make tea. Just remember that when you dry them, they're stronger, so you use less of them. When you use fresh plants, oftentimes you'll have to use a bit more. But here's the thing about any plant medicine and any traditional medicine, okay? Trust your body. I met a lady once who said, oh, the doctor gave me a pill and it makes my heart race really fast. What should I do? And I'm like, well, when did you stop taking the pill? And she said, I still take it. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, your heart rate, but you're still taking it. Don't do that. Trust your body. If you drink a tea and it's making your heart race, or it's making you sweat, or you have a weird reaction to it, quit taking it, or very much lower the amount of it that you're using. Yeah, so you can definitely use fresh plants when making tea. Next question.
Awesome. Thank you. Have you ever transplanted some of the roots and plants?
Yeah, I do tons and tons of plant cultivation, and can I show the turmeric? So like last year, I brought a piece of turmeric back from Hawaii, and I planted it in a bucket. Yeah, and then I'm in North Dakota, y'all. My partner actually is responsible for that. He has a super green thumb, but we do that all the time. Super easy. Stop being intimidated by our traditional medicines. That's what I love to tell people. Don't be intimidated. You know, everyone is like even with sauerkraut, people get it's just salt and cabbage. If it doesn't work the first time, try it again. You know what I mean? If you plant something and it doesn't grow the first time, try again. Okay.
Yeah. And for the sauerkraut, it's the Napa cabbage, right? Not the other.
Napa cabbage is for the kimchi. You can use regular old cabbage for the sauerkraut.
A couple over there. Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Colleen, hi, good to see you. What if you don't have access to plantain leaves to make the juniper cough syrup? Well, that's a good question.
Then leave them out, or add something else. I mean, if you have some bitter root, that's Acarus calamus, use some bitter root in there. If you have broadleaf plantain in your yard, you know, the other plantain, use some of that in there. You know, that's the other thing too. It's about what you have. You know, if you don't have plantain, use a little more lemon juice or some lemon peel, or use some nettles in there. Don't be afraid to experiment. Almost all the plants, like licorice root, the only thing is that some people, their blood pressure will raise with too much licorice root tea. So, you know, use something else. That's why I try to give all those options of plants that we talked about today.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Have you ever transplanted? Oh, that was already. How do you store the fire cider? I stored mine on the fridge.
Yeah, I leave mine out on the counter or put it up in a dark place. I found in a box a jar of fire cider. I didn't even strain it, but a jar of fire cider I'd made like 5 years ago. I opened it up and it was delicious. I used it in some bean soup, I think, that day. So you know, it's vinegar. It doesn't go bad. It just gets better over time. It's great.
Yeah, I actually found one from 4 months ago, out just in the dark, and it's great. I've been using it every day. So
I have a friend, Josh, who will take the leftover stuff from fire cider, like all the jalapeno and the onion and the garlic. He grinds it up and he adds honey and some like flour or something, and he makes these little pills, fire cider pills, out of the leftover. Yeah, they're really good. You know, you don't have to throw anything away.
Please confirm that the fire cider includes apple cider vinegar.
It does, yep. So you add all of those vegetables that I was talking about, and then into a jar, and then you cover it with apple cider vinegar. The reason I didn't give ratios for fire cider is, number one, you can find 5 million fire cider recipes online. But number two, if you don't like onion, leave the onion out. If you like garlic, add more garlic. You know what I mean? Like, make it your own. You know, if you don't like turmeric, add some echinacea instead, purple coneflower if you have that.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a lot of questions, but we're just gonna ask a couple more. We'll be posting it on Facebook, and on the we created an event page, so maybe we can have more questions there that people can ask. Okay. Can holy leaf cherry bark be used the same way as choke cherry?
I actually don't know, because I don't know what species that is. So I did say that earlier. You can PM me. I can't remember who it was that asked that, but you can try to PM me. I'd have to do a full research.
Emily Borgueno. That's okay.
Yeah, Emily. I'm not sure. I'd have to do a little bit of research. The two species that I use are the Prunus virginiana and the Prunus serotina.
Thank you, Linda. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I'm sorry, I do use the wild plum too, which is Prunus americana. You can use the bark of that as well. So I just wanted to say that. My Facebook, I'm Linda Black Elk on Facebook. I think might be the only Linda Black Elk on Facebook. I know there used to be one other, but she took her journey. And so you can find me there. And I post stuff all the time. Nicole knows that. So you can find me. And yeah, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Linda. Is there, can we do another question?
Oh, please, we can do lots more. I'm here all night, folks.
I know we are. Is marshmallow a good alternative to slippery elm?
It is. Marshmallow is a great alternative, and as are a lot of those mallows. So the Malvaceae family, the mallow family, is wonderful for lung support. They are mucilaginous, meaning if you boil them down, it kind of feels like okra in your mouth. You know, they're kind of thick, mucusy. Even that weedy, it's called Malva neglecta. There's like a mallow plant that grows in people's yards in the United States and in Canada and down into Mexico. You can eat that. It's great for lung support. It's just a plant that I personally don't use quite as much for lung support, but mallow is a great alternative, and it's a lot more sustainable than slippery elm bark. So
thank you. So somebody's making a root tea in an Instapot, and they're thinking of making citrus ginger root tea in their Instapot tomorrow, but not sure if it's going to be the same as boiling it. Well, do you have an Instapot? What do you think?
I actually don't use an Instapot, but I would probably try it. What was it? What was the ingredients again?
Citrus ginger root tea.
Oh, citrus and ginger. Oh yeah, I mean that would probably be totally fine. I would be more worried if it was something like cherry bark, because I don't know what that might pull out of the cherry bark. But citrus and ginger, yeah, shoot. Mm-hmm. Honey to that. It'd be good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of thank yous, Linda. Not a lot of thank yous. I'll put here your name on Facebook. Great presentation.
You guys are so welcome.
Do you have gut healthy recipes for people who might be a low sodium diet? I'm sure you do.
Yep. So those recipes that I was giving, I mean, there's a lot of like really great things for gut health, but like that, because fermentation, of course, takes salt. But yeah, we can definitely talk more about that. I could give you a book of recipes. Mm-hmm. Vinegar is amazing for gut health, and you don't have
That's
to have
right. Apple cider vinegar. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend yerba santa for lung and cough support? We traditionally use it here.
And actually, a friend of mine just sent me an amazing yerba santa tincture, and so I love it. But I don't have it, of course, up here. It's not traditional for my people or where I live now. So it's not something that I use as much. But man, I'm treasuring that tincture that my friend sent for me, and it's for lung support as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Will your hands get swollen if you pick nettles without gloves daily?
It depends on who you are. I actually have friends who get little welts from the nettles. I think I've picked them so much. My partner says this too. He and I have picked nettles so much that we just don't even get affected by them.
You're immune. Awesome. Well, there's a lot of good questions, but here I'm gonna put. It's always good to have you, Linda. I'm sending you a big kiss, a big hug, and thank you so much for everybody for joining us here. I'm gonna put Linda Black Elk on Facebook, and you can also, the Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance is where we're gonna be posting this, and Linda, I'm sure you'll be sharing. So
stay healthy right now, okay? It's really important. Stay away from people. I won't say stay inside. Go ahead, get outside, get your vitamin D, but stay as healthy as possible. Keep your gut healthy. Also, don't be so anxious. Don't be so stressed. Remember that stress and anxiety lower our immune system and decrease our ability to fight off infection. Okay, so laugh, have fun, you know, yeah, all that stuff.
And breathe deep. Breathe deep.
Deep breaths. How many times a day do you take a deep breath, right? Like really fill up your lungs completely. Some people do not do that at all. So take deep breaths and yeah, stay healthy. I love you guys.